Hello, welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast presented by Coinbase. We talk about the NBA, which we are doing on Tuesday afternoon here in Dallas, Texas. We're actually at the Mavericks' old practice court. It's where Dirk Nowitzki reined in 1.6 million practice jumpers. Joining me from 4 feet away, Tim Bontemps.
Did he take more or less jumpers than Karl Towns?
Oh,
That's the question.
Hey.
That joke went over my head. Joining us from 2 feet away from me is Dan MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. Do you not recall after Cat stunk it up for the first few games of the West Finals when he said he takes 1,500 jumpers a day?
Oh,
Yes, he said he was taking 1,500 jumpers a day during the conference finals.
that's not actually what he said. He just said he takes 1,500 jumpers. He didn't mean like every day of the year, but whatever. I'm not defending Cat today.
It's just a little joke that goes back to the Cat versus Dirk shooting argument.
We've got other things. We got other things.
We got other things to
We
discuss.
do, and it involves a big man
I was
who
going
can
to
shoot.
say other European 7-footers
Who can shoot.
Yep.
So, what would you say? Like a minute before Joe Mazzulla's press conference today?
Not even.
Okay.
Less than 30 seconds. I got the release in my hand, and I was reading it as Joe Mazzulla was sitting down. It took me a while to read it because even for me, it was a difficult read.
Even for you, like, dude.
That wasn't even the best interaction with him and Mazzulla today. We'll get to that.
Hold on. Let me just try though to tell you what the
I can't
what
wait.
the injury
I'm going to
is.
sit back.
Celtics center Kristaps Porzingis suffered a torn medial retinaculum, allowing dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon in his left leg.
That's actually decent.
Retinaculum? I don't know what that. So there's there's two words in there I absolutely have never heard of. The whole combination is completely foreign. But long story short is he has this really rare thing going on with what was his good leg.
Right.
This is not the leg that had the calf strain.
Yeah, we came out of game 2 talking about Kristaps Porzingis' right leg. When we thought he tweaked his right leg in the fourth quarter. And he told me he was going to get imaging, he believed, on his right leg. And then we find out today that he has this ankle injury, is the simple way to describe it.
When he went down, he kind of favored his left leg. Like he sort of kept his left leg in the air. I didn't notice that till the next day.
Yeah. So he said it said in the release it was on a play in the third quarter, which I went back and watched, and I didn't really see anything happen. And Porzingis himself said it was a random play or random moment that happened in the game. So I don't know if he just kind of stepped funny or if they mislabeled it and it was something else because I couldn't see anything in the sequence that I watched. But, I mean, the bottom line is it was funny, as I'm getting this email, I had just watched him walk by me because I wanted to see how he looked. And he had, like, some stuff on his leg but he was walking fine.
Yeah.
He walked fine to his seat at the podium. He's not
That's
limping.
actually we have very limited information about this, but if this is obviously with any tendon tear, there's different grades to it.
Yeah.
Or ligament tear, whichever. This is actually kind of a ligament / tendon.
No, it allows dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon.
Well, anyway, there's different grades, and if it's more severe, you kind of have to be in a walking boot. So the fact that he was not in a walking boot, we have very little information, but that is a good sign.
Well, and by the way, Adrian Wojnarowski has reported this afternoon that there, as of now, and again, we're talking Tuesday afternoon, so we'll see. But as of now, there's no indication he'll be ruled out and not permitted to try in Game 3. So,
I mean, they're calling it day to day. Joe Mazzulla said in one breath it's a serious injury. In the next breath, that we'll see if he's available tomorrow. He's going to do anything and everything he can. Mazzulla made it clear it's not a Porzingis decision; it's a medical team decision. But man, we talked about kind of the cruel irony of KP coming into this series, coming off of an extended injury absence. Obviously, in the first 2 games, and especially in the first game, he was able to make a massive impact. And, now here he is, the guy who hadn't played in Dallas since weeks before the Mavericks traded him. His Game 3 availability is certainly in question.
So I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I've actually dealt with an issue with this tendon.
I got to say, I was on TV with Brian doing NBA Today earlier, and they gave an update about Porzingis, and they brought in him and Andre Carter. And Brian starts going into the speech, but he had this injury. I it was all I could do to not have my jaw hit the floor. I was like, wait a minute, what are we talking about?
I had tendonitis in this tendon 15 years ago. And the thing about the tendon, I remember being at the podiatrist, and I remember him using a marker on my foot and drawing where the tendon is. And the thing about this tendon is it bends. It's kind of got like it kind of goes like on a right angle.
Kind of like a half pipe.
Exactly. And you can get tendonitis in that tendon more easily if you have flat feet, which I do. And it's an unusual place to have an injury, and it hurts every time you step. And you can do a lot of treatment, but you just basically have to rest it for like months. So obviously Porzingis is getting a little higher level of a care than I did, but I can't believe when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it wasn't torn. It wasn't the same injury. Okay, whatever. I'm literally a foot and a half shorter. But Jeff Stotts in Street Clothes, who tracks injuries, has no history of this happening by itself. He has, I think he said one player.
There was one traumatic injury where it was included as part of it.
So really we don't know. And I'll bet the Celtics and their doctors to a certain extent don't know either. But they have to prepare for the possibility he's not going to play.
Well, you don't often see a team say in a release, it's a rare injury.
Yeah.
And said after extensive consultation over this rare injury, his status is day-to-day going forward.
Well, here's the thing. They didn't say questionable, doubtful, probable. They said day-to-day. They didn't even put like a game status.
Right.
Yeah, and we're going to find out here pretty soon. I mean, they have to announce at 4:30 local time, about an hour, what his status is for game 2 or game 3. I suspect he will be listed as questionable.
Right.
That would be my guess.
Right.
Since we're all trying to figure out what the hell this even means, it's pretty easy to say it's a questionable deal and see what happens.
I got a feeling he'll be questionable for every game for the rest of the series. And I think he'll have some company on his former teammate on the other side.
Yeah, we got some MacMahon breaking news before that.
MacMahon did some breaking news, which we'll talk about in a second. All right, so let's say that he can't play or is highly limited. Bontemps, what is the fallout for the Celtics?
Well, there's a couple things. Obviously, if you don't have 20 and 7 and a elite 3-point shooter and rim protector on the court, that hurts you just to begin with, right? So Porzingis coming back, coming into the series, that was one of the real questions. What's he going to look like? Well, he comes back, they're plus 25 in the 44 minutes he's played. They're even in the 52 minutes he hasn't. So him being off the court is obviously just a big deal on its own. The biggest thing for me is going to be what happens with Al Horford, because in the first 2 games, he's looked amazing. He's flying around. He's getting switched on to Kyrie and Luka, and he's holding up fine. And the thing with Al in these playoffs, he's obviously in his age 37 season, he's in his 17th season in the league. When he is out there for 25 to 30 minutes, he looks great.
Yeah.
And he gets to 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. And by the way, in the games where if the Celtics have been stressed, that's when Joe Mazzulla has ratcheted up those minutes, because whether it's Xavier Tillman or Luke Cornett, my guess is they'll go with Cornett first, but could go either way. If those guys don't have a good stint, he's going to go right back to that. And if Al's playing 38 minutes, if he's playing 40 minutes, especially with only one game between games 3 and 4, that starts to catch up with you pretty quick. And if his production starts to fall off, well, then you've got a spot for Luka and Kyrie to attack. Then you've got a 3-point shooter you can maybe leave alone, like Indiana did at times. Yeah. So that to me is the key. It's Porzingis obviously being out, and then it's what is the supplementary impact on Al Horford, and can Boston keep that same level of play from him and also not overextend his minutes and panic if the Cornett and Tillman minutes aren't going great, or do they try to play small or something else?
The one thing is they literally were just playing this way for 2 whole series. And Horford never came out of the starting lineup. They will continue to start the same lineup. Luke Cornett was being bothered by a wrist injury early in the playoffs. I watched him go through a workout before the game the other day. He seems okay.
He's fine, yeah.
So they can give him a few minutes and there's not a devastating fall off.
Well, and it's interesting because you look at it in different ways, right? Obviously, Luke Cornett, 7'2", is definitely a drop big. But if you have him out there, maybe you could still take away some of this lob stuff that Dallas has been trying to do.
That's where I think that the biggest impact, I think, is going to be the lob game opening up for the Mavericks, and just the downhill paint attacking game open up for the Mavericks. And look, you've still got phenomenal perimeter defenders that you're going to have to get by, and you're going to have to figure out ways to get into the paint. But Dallas, after the trade deadline, when they added a couple of lob threats in Gafford and Washington, obviously they have Lively, have Derrick Jones Jr. They were one of the leagues. I think they were second in the league in field goal percentage on dunks and layups. Luka's going to be able to get in the paint. He's going to create a lot of things. They have to get back to being a dominant finishing team. I mean, the 54 lobs in the 3 rounds, that's more than any other team's had in a full postseason in at least a decade.
Well, look, this year it was 54-9 was the
Right.
second place team had 9. Obviously,
Yeah,
it
the
was the
Mavericks
Nuggets
had
in the second
multiple-
round, but still.
Yeah, the Mavericks had 3 guys, I think, who had more than the team that had the next most. And I think there's only been 2 lob dunks by the Mavericks
Both in game 2.
in the first 2 games. That's got to get back to being a weapon. And obviously Porzingis wasn't on the floor every minute, but it's been Porzingis or Horford. Horford can't play 48.
No.
And as you said, if he's playing 32, 34, 36, there seems to be diminishing returns. I really think as impactful as Porzingis is, spacing the floor, with his post-up stuff offensively, this will have a bigger impact defensively for the Celtics.
Yeah, the rim defense was really bad for most of the series against the Pacers. I think some of that might have been because the Celtics are in cruise control at times. It was better in game 4. It was good the first 2 games of the series with Porzingis back. The other thing, real quick on offense, the Celtics have 8 guys who are really good guardable shooters all the time when Kristaps Porzingis plays. Now, with him out, whether it's Cornette, whether it's Tillman, whether they play O'Shea Brissett and go small, whatever they do, there's a non-shooter out there. So that gives Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford in particular a home on defense, keeps them at the rim more, changes the whole geometry of the court for the Celtics on offense. Now, obviously, they're still going to have a ton of other offensive weapons out there, but going from 5 out to 4 out, it's a noticeable difference for a team that's got a couple bigs that can anchor in the paint.
And when they did go 4 out in game 2, a lot of times it was with a guard in the dunker spot. Drew Holiday did a lot of work there. Derek White did a lot of work there. So it's like, the Mavs couldn't just put a big down their guard nap, because the next thing you're going 5 out, you've got a big on a guard who can do some damage. So no doubt the ability to, because that's what the Mavs did so well defensively through the first 3 rounds, is they packed the paint, and Gafford and Lively were so impactful down there. But in this series, they've had to be stretched out, and it's just a different beast.
Yeah.
Celtics are plus 25 when Porzingis is on the court. Flat.
Someone might have said that.
You say it already?
I did.
Yeah, he didn't say the rest.
I did.
You didn't say flat.
I said even.
No. Well, listen. The one thing is, nobody really listens to Bontemps. So anytime you repeat him, it's like you're saying it for the first time.
Brian's memory is just going by the day.
It is true, but it's because I don't sleep. All right. So
subtle Wendy sleep update.
Although I don't think Bontemps slept much the other night.
Bontemps doesn't sleep either.
Yeah.
But I sleep enough for the 3 of us.
That is true.
All right. So that's one injury thing. The second injury thing, you had some news today, MacMahon, on Luka.
Yeah, Luka got a pain-killing shot to deal with this thoracic contusion, which is another word that I learned during this series. Basically, the bruised chest. Got a pain-killing shot to numb it before game 2. Obviously, he was questionable. There really was never question that he was going to play, but there were. This was a measure that had to be taken to allow him to. I don't know if allow him to play, but give him a chance to play without the pain just absolutely killing him. The expectation is he will get another shot before game 3. And again, I mean,
he said he felt great today.
Well, and then what else did he say?
Same answer all the time. Which I give him a lot of credit for.
He says, I feel good. I don't want. He basically says something like, I don't want to go into detail, but I feel good. And the detail is that he's getting pain-killing shots. He got one before game 2, get one before game 3, and see how it goes after that. But look, he came into the series beat up. The sprained knee that he's been playing on since the 3rd game of the playoffs, it hasn't gotten better. And he's told us it's probably not going to get better until he's able to rest. I think he's going to, get that checked out before
rest in training camp for the Mavs.
Well,
in September and October.
Obviously, he's
good rest in the first halves of games in the first half of the next season.
But that Olympic qualifier is, I think it starts July 2nd.
That's right.
I think he's going to get the knee checked out just to make sure there's nothing.
July 2nd's coming up.
Yeah, I think he's going to get it checked out after this series, just to make sure that there's not like a red alert.
They're in the Greek qualifier, right?
But yeah, but he's
They're in
playing.
Greece.
But you know,
Are the Mavs going to be rooting for the Greeks to win that?
I don't think the Mavs will ever root against Luka.
I didn't say they'd be telling Luka how they would be rooting. I just mean in private. Are they going to be going, hey, it would be really nice if our guy could just be done on July 4th for the summer?
There's also benefits to knowing that Luka's going to be doing things like running up and down the floor during the summer. So, but obviously he's hoping to play deep into the summer with Slovenia. After this, you know, his rest, he hopes, will come after the Olympics. There will still be however much time, I don't know what it is, 6 weeks, a month before training camp opens. But, you know, the guy's been playing on a sprained knee. He's had the left ankle soreness since he got tripped up in, I think, the second game of the Oklahoma City series. But at this point, the pain is from this bruised chest.
So getting the pain-killing shots over the years, this is one thing I've talked to a lot of players about. It's a bit of a controversial thing. I remember Larry Hughes in the 2007 finals. He had a foot injury, and he got the shots, and he was very nervous about it.
Yeah,
because you see like Kevin McHale, the way he walks. Kevin McHale played on an injury.
I almost want to throw up every time I watch Kevin McHale walk.
Right,
like it's unbelievable. I can't even imagine the pain he's got to be in on a daily basis. Because for fans who haven't seen him, like he walks with a very heavy limp all the time.
And, Larry basically did it for like a game or two and said, I just can't do this anymore.
Well, and I don't know if it's exact. I don't know if he got shots, but Dirk has talked a lot about the amount of strain
I'm
he's
sure
put on
Dirk's
his
got
feet.
plenty of Dirk has expressed some regret about hanging on for those last couple of years, and just because, he's not moved around so well anymore. Not that he moved around great his last couple of years, but just as far as like the day-to-day life for,
Right. That's kind of what Larry was saying. You play on a bad foot and you're running on something, you could do some permanent damage. A chest injury is a little bit different, but there's a player, and I don't want to say who the player is because it's his story to tell, but there's a player who made a finals run and was getting Toradol in he had cracked ribs. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me this story, and he was getting a Toradol injection. He wouldn't practice. He would get a Toradol injection. The Toradol lasts like 24 hours. And it was like better in hours, like 7, I don't know. Don't hold me to this, but it didn't work right away. It like worked the best like midway through. So we'd get it like 12 hours in advance. And he felt great, but like he's risking himself. Like his ribs could be cracking and puncturing his lung, and you may not know. Pain's there for a reason. And so, look, I'm not going to freak out, whatever, but I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of stories of pain-killing injections that come out later in guys' careers. And they're like, yeah, well, I did take the needle back then. And so I think it's interesting that Luka's doing this.
Look, Luka's been playing hurt. Now he's playing hurt-er, and I don't mean Kevin.
Who's also been hurt recently. His shoulder, I think, was injured.
Yes. Yes, he did.
All right. So that's the MASH unit here. Is for the guys who are not injured. By the way, we'll talk about Bontemps and Mazzulla here today. So,
well, let's talk about Kyrie first.
All right, Kyrie.
It plays into that.
Kyrie came out, and I can't remember if I lost track of MacMahon about who has admitted to the other teammates that it was their fault. Like after these games, Luka's like it's my fault.
Well,
Kyrie's like it's my fault.
Luka's going to take blame, and then Kyrie's good about that too. But in this case, it's like, look. Luka, there were some terrible turnovers, but the guy who had a 32-point triple-double is not the one who needs to be falling on the sword.
So Kyrie said today he came to Luka.
Yeah, came to Luka, and he calls him hermano, which, as you guys know, I'm bilingual. That means brother in Espanol.
The other day, Luka answered questions in the press conference in 3 different languages.
Well, they didn't get to the fourth because he also, I don't know which European language it was, but he knows Serbian and Slovenian.
Well, I guess I don't know if it was Serbian or Slovenian he was asked in, but there was something else besides Spanish. I didn't know. Spanish I knew, maybe like 1 out of every 10 words. This is a language I knew none.
Yeah, but Kyrie basically said, I've got to play better alongside you to Luka, and went on and on. And today he was talking about the different things the Mavericks need to do better, but he said it starts with me. And it's one of those things where honestly it's kind of like a no duh statement, because the guy averaged 14 points on 35% shooting in the first 2 games of the series. And look, they just mowed through the best defense or number 1 ranked defense, at least in the NBA, because they had Kyrie and Luka both firing on all cylinders. They had 3 games during that series where they were both 30 plus points in each game. And Luka game 1 wasn't great. He got 30, wasn't great. Game 2, Luka, again, the turnovers are what they are, but he had 32 efficient points. He had 11 assists, and Kyrie was just kind of a no-show. Like, Kyrie came out hot, hit 4 of his first 5, and then fizzled. And, we've talked about there were possessions where Jaylen Brown just completely swallowed him up, or, Drew Holiday, and there's been some Derek White. I mean, he has not gotten going at all. And look, if the 8-time All-Star doesn't get rolling against the team that has the NBA's best record, it's not going to be a long series. This is not like
whether Porzingis is playing or not.
Yeah, it's not in-depth analysis. It's an obvious statement. But Kyrie made sure to emphasize, hey, I get it. I'm calling myself out. It's on me. And he also made a point to note he has been down 0-2 in the finals before. Now, the last time, it was a 5-game series. But the time before that was obviously historic. And as the Cavaliers are winning those final 3 games against the 73-win Warriors, Kyrie's averaging 30 points per game in those. He's hitting the Game 7 winning shot. He says, I know what it takes, but, can't wait any longer. It's got to happen tomorrow night.
Listen, the guy has 28 points on 37 shots in 2 games. He's 0 for 8 from 3. He's 13 for 37 from the field. Like, it's very simple. Like, he's got to be scoring 37 points in a game on 20 shots, not going for 28 on 37 shots in 2 games. Like, that's just not acceptable. We could talk about all the other guys on hitting shots. We could talk about everything else. If Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are not combining for 60 to 70 points, I don't think this team has a chance to win a game in the series. He's got to be awesome.
The Celtics are so tight and so good in guarding the pick and roll, and so tight in the switches and all that stuff. Don't you think Kyrie should just ISO more? Am I just making?
There's been a lot. Actually, the ESPN tracking stuff, his time holding the ball per touch and his dribbles per touch are all way up. I think
the whole team's is. They're not passing the ball at all.
Right. And so, what they're talking about is getting Kyrie the ball more on the live catch, getting him in position where it can be a quick attack. But look,
a quick attack in ISO.
Well, look, this is the challenge of playing the Celtics.
Right.
The Celtics are the single best team equipped to guard Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving in the entire NBA. They've got 4 guys who are long, athletic players that could switch on to either one of them at any point. Derek White can't really hang with Luka because of his size. All 4 of those guys in moments, again, Jason Tatum may be a little big to guard Kyrie a lot, but they've certainly played a lot of one-on-one. He knows all Kyrie's moves. Like, those guys can hang with these guys in a way no other team can. And that was always going to be the challenge coming into the series, was can these guys have the same kind of performances they had against Minnesota, against the team that might not have statistically had the best defense, but was the most talented and most versatile defense. Well, and through 2 games, they haven't been able to.
But if you say they're as well equipped as anybody, the Timberwolves probably rank second on that list, right? And I mean, with Anthony Edwards.
But they're still playing Mike Conley in the starting lineup, who's a guy you can go at. They're still playing Karl Towns in the starting lineup who you can go at. They still can go at Rudy Gobert in isolation.
My point is this. Kyrie Irving will be going into the Hall of Fame one day, in large part because he is one of the best tough shot makers in the league now and really ever. And he's missed some clean looks, but a lot of these have been tough shots. If Kyrie Irving doesn't hit a bunch of tough shots in this series, it's going to be very difficult for the Mavericks to make it any kind of competitive series.
Let's just call it like it is. Dallas can't win unless Kyrie is playing awesome. Yeah. Like, he and Luka have to be awesome.
Luka in the first 2 games combined is 2 of 10 in the fourth quarter. He seems to have.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I don't know, the game 1 first quarter, or fourth quarter rather.
The game is over.
But
I know he had all the unders because he came out.
Well, but again, they've got Jaylen Brown is picking him up. We're on the court here. They're picking him up at the logo.
I understand.
Down in the paint and going every trip down.
One of the big things that the Mavs were dealing with earlier in the playoffs was trying to save energy for Luka late in the game. That was something that was a big emphasis early in the last series against Minnesota.
Yeah.
Especially now that he's, taking pain-killing shots. You may want to let Kyrie go a little bit more earlier in the game, don't you think?
Well, and again,
energy.
That happened last game.
He took off in
Kyrie
the first 5 minutes.
hit 4 of his first 5, and then just poof, his game was gone for the rest of the night. But yeah, I mean, look, Luka he's led, despite being questionable for the vast majority of games during these playoffs, he's led the league in minutes this postseason, as well as basically every other single statistical category you can think of. Like they're selective with their timeout. Sometimes they call a timeout just so Luka can sit down for a long commercial break. And hey,
it's a good use of a timeout.
And there's a reason. It's not. And Jaylen Brown actually game 1 did pick him a couple times, which you never see. But the reason to pick him up full court is to just make him use as much energy.
Yeah.
Obviously you want to target him defensively because, you think you have guys who can take him off the dribble. But the other reason to go at him again and again and again is because you're trying to make it as hard for, okay, you want to play 42, 44 minutes, you're going to be worn down.
Well, how about having Kyrie bring the ball under the pressure?
But again, it's all the same thing, though. They can't. Luka has to have the ball all the time. He's the only guy that's getting any of these other guys' shots.
There's an efficiency issue.
There's also Kyrie can bring it up, and Kyrie can bring it
up against any pressure in the history of the game.
There are also plenty of ways that the Mavericks can and have gotten Luka the ball in the half court without him bringing it up. I mean, they can. My point is more that with zoom action and this, that, and the other. But there's plenty of ways.
My point is more that for all of Kyrie's gifts, he's never been a guy that makes shots for other people. Really, he gets some assists, but he's making shots for himself, and that's why for all the best role he's always been in has been next to a guy like Luka or a guy like LeBron, when he's really just playing shooting guard and his job is to shoot and to create shots, and the other guy has to set everything up. And so, yeah, you could say Kyrie has to have the ball more, and Kyrie needs to obviously play better and hit more shots, but Luka's still got to be the one that's creating all these shots for everybody and getting in the lane and hitting P.J. Washington and Derek Jones and trying to get these guys going and trying to get everybody more involved.
I'm just thinking more getting Kyrie involved while also giving Luka a break.
Well, look, Kyrie's he's got to be better in every facet. He's been better on defense in the playoffs. He's been god-awful the first couple games on defense. I think playing in Boston, he was clearly impacted by the crowd. For whatever else you want to say about Kyrie, he typically doesn't react to anything. He's making those shots early in the game. He's pointing stuff in the crowd. He made the comments that the crowd wasn't loud enough after game 1.
He's wavering a little bit on his passivity.
Well, and I'll say, he's hearing all kinds of things. And it's like, we can sit here and talk about it. You got to block it out, but these are human beings with ears.
This is what I talked about going into the series. It's a far different animal playing the Celtics in Boston for him than it was playing in Minneapolis and Oklahoma City and in LA against the Clippers. Like, it's a far different level. But now they're back home, and look, we got the Porzingis thing. We'll see what happens with that. We'll see how Luka comes back from the shot. But these other guys got to hit some shots, and Kyrie's just got to be way better. Like, if we're talking about Dallas winning Game 3. I got to think he goes for 30-plus and plays well.
And their third best player has to be way better. And it's asking a lot because he's a 20-year-old rookie. But Derek Lively II was not a force whatsoever in the first 2 games of these finals. This is a guy who, you go back and watch them close out the series against the Thunder, absolutely dominated the entire second half of that game. He got hurt in the Minnesota series, but when he was on the floor in that series, he was a dominant factor. He's got and if Porzingis isn't playing or is limited, that could simplify things for Lively and put him in a position really to play to his strengths. But he's got to be, and it's not even necessarily scoring. Obviously, you'd like him to catch some lobs, but he's got to be much more active than he has been in the first couple games.
All right, so when Joe Mazzulla came into the press conference today, he had to answer some questions about Porzingis, and he had statement quarter ready. He came in with one motive,
Sure did.
and that was to defend Jason Tatum.
Oh, I thought it was to talk about Brazilian soccer.
Well,
I wouldn't even say it was to defend Jason Tatum. I would say it was to make people talk about Joe Mazzulla, which he succeeded at. I think that was entirely his goal. No, I mean in the same manner, but this was
instead of Jason Tatum. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Joe Mazzulla wanted to come in and take the pressure off of his players by making it about him, and that's what he did.
Well, he came in and he got the first question was from a Brazilian. And
An ESPN Brazil reporter.
I'm sure he was going to try to do this with whatever the first question was. So he got a question. He goes, "Oh, you're from Brazil?" He goes, "Yep." He starts asking about whether Brazilian soccer players are under as much scrutiny as Jason Tatum has been under, which I was like, yes, they are. More scrutiny than Jason Tatum.
Well, that's not. I don't believe that was the.
He went back to that at the end.
That was
had like a
the
long
first
conversation.
question. Was he was asked this, and he said, "I like the way you asked that question because you look at things differently than the people here who just crap on everything, essentially, and then gave a speech about how great Jason has been, which he has been doing consistently throughout the playoffs."
He gave a speech about how unfair the media is.
Well, and also about all the stuff that Jason has been doing. And then at the end of the press conference, he said, "I have a question for you," and then circled back with
going
this.
too fast as usual.
Okay.
I could keep.
Well, I was.
He goes.
I was explaining what actually happened.
He goes through
We're
this
rewriting history.
soliloquy about how in Brazil they must appreciate basketball better than these evil Americans, and then Bontemps asks a question about Porzingis because that's what we need to ask. And
Right.
he interrupts Bontemps and goes, "Did you like that?" And what did he say?
Yeah, pal, it was great.
What did he say?
As he saw I was asking a question, he said, "Did you like that?" And I said, "Yes, I did." Then I also said, "I think I look at things in a pretty good manner."
That's what I was waiting for. He's like,
he said,
I think I look at things not these rubes,
and Joe,
not these rube, evil, ugly Americans.
Yeah,
that Brazilian looks at it in the right manner, and basketball thought leader,
and guess
Tim
who?
Bontemps.
And guess who agrees with that? Joe Mazzulla.
Keep going, buddy.
He does. He agrees with that part.
That was the only time Joe smiled in a press conference the entire finals was when he was
Joe's my
asking
guy.
if
But I'll say this. Jason Tatum's a second-tier superstar who is being held to like MVP finalist standards. He's not an MVP finalist. Now, whether he's the best player on that team or not, who cares? He is good enough to be the best player, arguably the best player on a team that's halfway towards sweeping a finals. You know, that's plenty, but it's like he's not Joker or Luka or even SGA. That's fine. So I think there's some sensitivity probably from the Celtics that he's being ripped because he hasn't put the ball in the basket in the series, and
which he hasn't. What is he?
Well, he hasn't.
6 of
He
20.
was 6 for 22 in game
6
two.
of 22.
He shot 30. He shot, I think, the lowest percentage on a certain number of attempts in the history of the NBA Finals because he didn't shoot the ball well.
Yeah, and game one, honestly, he just had a mediocre game. He turned it over 6 times. Game 2, he didn't shoot it well and did a whole bunch of other things that helped him. I mean, he had a great passing game.
He's not playing great.
He's rebounding.
Well.
He's guarding the bigs and holding his own on the glass. Like, he's doing a lot of great things.
He's been fine.
But right now, if we're talking about who would the Finals MVP be, then he's going to be like 4th on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, look, the bottom line
he
here.
doesn't have to win Finals.
The bottom
MVP.
line here is very simple. For years, the Celtics have knocked on the door and not gotten through it. And so people all season long have been finding reasons to bag on the Celtics and say they're not actually that good and that they're not actually a 64-win team. And they actually didn't have a net rating of almost 12, and they had an easy path through the playoffs, so therefore they're going to lose to Dallas in the final. Like, people have been finding reasons to assume they're going to lose the whole time. And you lived through this with Dirk. We saw it before Giannis won. We saw it before Nikola Jokic won. Once you win one, all this stuff goes away.
It goes away.
And just like Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce won one, and his whole career after that was fine. Didn't matter. They lost in the finals again. They lost in the conference finals, whatever. And if the Celtics get 2 more wins in this series, they get this 18th title, they get him and Jaylen Brown a championship, their numbers are going in the rafters, and the rest of their career is gravy. If they win 2, 3 more, great. But if they get 1,
what happens when you win a championship?
You never have to say you're sorry.
That's right. And so that's what I would just say. I don't need some Brazilian, misdirection play. 'Cause that's what Joe Mazzulla did at the end. The press conference was over, and then he goes back and forth with Brazilian trying to talk about Neymar.
Yes.
And the whole time, the Brazilian is having an earnest conversation about how the media covers the Brazilian players. But really, the entire subtext is Joe giving the finger to the whole media.
Was the Brazilian reporter a pawn in this case?
No.
Ask Kyrie.
What Joe Mazzulla was doing was creating a lot of attention on Joe Mazzulla, so people are not talking about Jason Tatum.
Fail.
Which, you know what,
I don't agree.
Honestly,
I think it's...
We just spent 5 minutes talking about
But we were
Tatum.
talking about Joe Mazzulla.
I don't
and
know,
we're
man.
also smart.
We're just calling him out on that.
But here's the
sure.
thing. Like, if you can talk about Tatum all you want, we can say he hadn't played that well, this, that. They're up 2-0. Like, I don't understand the...
Never say you're sorry.
Yeah, you're up 2-0.
That's the story.
He's contributed in ways outside of scoring. Again, I don't think game 1 he played very well. Game 2, just outside of shooting, he actually did.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff.
Play very well.
I thought Drew Holiday may have given the best Valentine to Tatum in this series. When he was being asked after the game the other day, when he had 9 baskets in the paint, he was basically like, this wasn't the exact quote. He was basically like, I was just making myself available to Jason.
Yeah.
Which is what he was doing.
Like
He
Jason
was
was
walking
making
to the rim and he was
Jason
wide
was making
open.
the hard plays. I was just the person to catch the scraps.
Yeah, he was a 6'9" point forward who was guarding the center and rebounding on the other end. So, look, and I think Paul Pierce is a fine comparison in terms of the level of player that Tatum is. Pierce is a Hall of Famer. Tatum's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Sure.
But he's not Dirk. He's not Giannis. He's not Luka's at a different level. I mean, Joker's at a different level.
But like all those guys, if he gets one, then it all goes away. And then it's just your NBA champion Jason Tatum.
Right.
That's
nobody attacked Pierce after, he played another 8 or 9 years after he won the title.
And if they go another 6 years and in the conference finals 5 times, it won't be like, oh man, the Celtics, they underachieved. No, they won the title. That's it. Right. That's all it'll be.
For sure.
But it was a very entertaining move by Joe Mazzulla, whose press conference stylings I enjoy.
Yeah, well, for sure. He tries to put the media on tilt, and it works a lot.
He deals with a different level of spotlight than most stars for 2 reasons. The franchise he plays for, I mean, it's a banner 18, blah, 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 all that. And because he's been knocking at the door for basically his entire career.
Correct.
Most guys who are 26, like Luka at 25 is just now, despite being a 5-time first-team All-NBA player, just now getting to the stage. He's been in 1 conference finals before. Tatum's basically been in the conference finals damn near every year.
Since Jason Tatum entered the league, he leads the NBA in playoff games played, playoff minutes played, playoff points scored, and is the top 5 in rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, and threes made. And leads in free throws, and I think and in free throws attempted.
Which means you're on the stage a lot.
That's
you're
right.
going to be talked about a lot because, again, especially playing for that franchise. That franchise and the Lakers, and it's become the Warriors just over the last decade. Yeah. They're going to get a lot of attention.
And that's why if they can win 1, that's all they got to do. They got to win 2 more games and get 1 ring, and then it all goes away. And then it's just everything's awesome. You just played a Lego song. Everything is awesome.
Good reference. All right, well, you mentioned the Lakers, so before we go,
Wendy's been dying
to
talk
about.
Got the reference.
It's your fault. I wasn't even gonna. I've even forgotten. But then you brought it up.
Hold on. Is JJ Redick in the building? Maybe I can come get his analysis.
I just saw him a little bit ago.
Okay.
I just saw him a little bit ago. JJ was giving his typical 1,000-yard stare.
He didn't see you, huh?
I didn't. I just say hello to him, but I mean, he has sort of a look, sort of a set look. That's that JJ operates at all times. The
other thing you can do is the little AirPods. Like first thing you do when you get on a plane, you got to get those AirPods in.
You just want to ignore all your fans?
I don't have fans. I want to ignore the haters.
I had a gentleman at the Logan Airport yesterday talk about how he and his son send quotes from our pod back and forth to each other. You are part of a father-son bonding experience. And if I had had my AirPods in, I wouldn't have heard him.
Oh, that reminds me. I've got to thank, and I don't have the name handy. I did finally get TSA pre-check. Yes. And it took me like damn near the whole 60 days. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if my background check had a bunch of red flags or whatever, but there's a father and son duo from Illinois that they tried to meet me at a game in Oklahoma City. It was the Mavericks trip there that
you were at the bar.
No, Luka didn't. Luka didn't go, so he asked me to stay back here with him, so I did. It was when Luka had the tight hammy.
That's right. If Luka doesn't go, you don't go.
But anyways, he left an envelope, and they started the TSA pre-check questionnaire for me, and they left $20 to cover the first year. And I apologize that I don't have the name handy. High school buddies with my second favorite Tumbleson in Oklahoma City, Matt, who runs the PR staff there. So that nudged me into finally getting the pre-check. I applied for it before the playoffs started. I just got it at the end of the Western Conference Finals. So shout out to the father and son duo from Illinois. You know who you are, and I apologize I don't have your name handy.
And are you enjoying your pre-check experience?
Listen, I was floating on air the first time I walked through there with my shoes on. Laptop still in. I felt like I was getting away with something, baby.
Well, thank you very much for listeners. Anyway, there was and I didn't get his name, but there was a father who talked about how much he loves sending your quotes to his son. And you would have missed that because you would have had your AirPods in.
I mean,
anyway,
if you have a smile, I'll take him out. If you have a little poop-eating grin, I'm going to leave him in there and pretend like I'm asleep.
Well, anyway, JJ's walking around here focused on his number one job, which is calling the finals for ABC. Obviously, Dan Hurley has turned it down, what have you. I just have one question, because I think 6 years, $70 million was a low ball offer from the Lakers.
You know, when you say the sixth largest offer for a head coach in the NBA, okay, that's up there, your top 20%. But like if you're trying to overwhelm a guy with your offer, the Detroit Pistons reset the market when they were trying to overwhelm Monty Williams. So if you're trying to overwhelm a guy, you're resetting the market.
There's all these people who know Dan Hurley personally, and they say to me, he's not making the decision over money. It's not about money. And I go, the Lakers needed it to be about money. Well, that was the problem. The problem is it wasn't about money.
Yeah, Monty Williams said no many times when it wasn't about the money. Then it was just enough money for him to say.
What do you think of that offer?
I think the Lakers have historically been seen to be a cheap organization.
Ooh.
And I think that they certainly didn't make Dan Hurley take the offer.
Because here's my viewpoint. From a basketball standpoint, it's not close. UConn job's a better job. They're the two-time defending champions. He's got a top 5 roster. Yeah, it's going to be hard to maintain it because of the NIL stuff, whatever. But from basketball?
Well, look, we've discussed the Laker job is the worst coaching job in the league right now.
I don't know
in
if I say
opinion.
worst. It's not the worst. The Wizards might be the worst, but
again, from the marriage of expectations and realistic outcomes.
Hey, the Pistons might be the worst. That's why they had to throw so much money at Monty.
Well,
exactly. Okay, so the basketball is not a question. Connecticut by a mile. So now talk about the money.
Listen, I think it's a very bad look for the Lakers that they pursued Dan Hurley.
I don't think it's a bad look they pursued him.
No. You know, let me finish. I think it's a bad look that they pursued Dan Hurley and couldn't convince him to come.
You know what this is? You know those awful Jumbotron proposals? The Lakers are down on one knee with the whole world watching. And man, they got denied.
Yeah, and they found out that it was, only like a half carat ring. Now, look, I understand.
70 mils, no, it's a few carats, but
okay,
yes.
I understand that 6 years, $70 million is a lot of money. Sounds like a lot of money. But just to clarify, he is making $5 and change million on his contract right now that he signed last year after he won the championship. He has been offered a new contract for $8 million a year, which Woj reported, but has also been reported elsewhere. He didn't like that contract offer. Do you want to know why I know that? Because he didn't take it. And instead went out to Los Angeles. Okay?
And was willing to flirt.
All right. Now, the governor of Connecticut comes out and says, I believe his name is Ned Lamont.
Ned Lamont, yep.
Comes out and says, Jackson, our Connecticut resident, says so. I don't know how you feel about your use of your tax dollars here, Jackson. But
Jackson,
he goes, we're going to make
it.
him the highest.
You know who's the most upset person? Dan Hurley didn't go to the Lakers.
The
Jackson,
Syracuse fan.
The Syracuse fan who lives in Connecticut and
right.
hates UConn with a passion.
Born and raised in Connecticut and roots against UConn.
Yeah.
All right. The governor says he's going to be the highest paid coach in college basketball. Now, I am aware that the governor isn't the person who decides the salaries at the university. Having said that, I assume that message was delivered to Dan as he was trying to. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that wasn't the first time it was said.
All these things are semantics, right?
No, it's not semantics. I want to illustrate the number difference.
Okay.
So Bill Self is the highest earning college coach right now, $10.5 million.
Yeah.
Let's say he gets $10.5 and $1 to verify that. And let's not even say he gets 10.5. Let's just say they get close and they give him 10.
Sure.
$10 million a year in Connecticut, $11 million a year with the Lakers. Not comparable.
You're making less money with the Lakers because of taxes.
This is true.
My point was that the semantics on it is what we're really saying here is the Lakers could have blown it out of the water.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
$100 million. They needed off from $100 million.
And they didn't do it. So again, to me, the Lakers go pursue this guy to coach their team. He turns them down to stay in college. That is a very bad look for the Lakers.
It's a bad look. It doesn't. It's not
you wrote, it doesn't mean their offseason is ruined. It doesn't mean they can't recover from it, but it is a very bad look. And we're now a couple weeks out from the draft. They don't have a coach. They have to figure out what's going on with LeBron. They have to make all these moves this summer to try to improve this team in a Western Conference. It's only getting harder by the day, and they have getting an older roster by the day. And there's not a lot to look around at with the Lakers to go, man, this is feeling good. Because you could at least argued if they get this Dan Hurley thing to work, hey, we'll have him come in. He'll be robust with player development. Let's see what we can do with it. Now it's like, all right, what's the plan?
Well, listen, they at least beat the Celtics to banner 18. Now the 18th is it's like a little ribbon up there, but still.
Which is what Cornbread Maxwell said seconds before kicking our.
Where's this thing that got kicked? Jackson.
Right there. Jackson's defending it.
Okay.
Yeah, he got that was a rough one. We had such a great pod.
It seemed like Zach took it in stride.
Anyway, we know of 3 other candidates that the Lakers have. There could be 7 more that we don't know because we didn't know about Dan Hurley. We know the 3 other candidates. 2 of them are in the building here today. JJ Redick and Sam Cassell. They are not available to do more formal interviews right now.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is James Borrego, who right now is in Cleveland.
Well, I would say if that's the guy, you might want to hustle it up.
And let's just ask this question: what's the better job? To me, it's unquestionably the Cavs job.
The better job might be the one that pays more. Let's not act.
Dan Gilbert's paying more than if it's a building war between Dan Gilbert
way.
and the buses. Dan Gilbert's winning that.
Absolutely.
I think the Cleveland job's definitely a better job.
Let's do it this way: basketball. Which team has a better roster?
Cavs.
The Cavs have a better roster. The Cavs roster also, I think, is going to undergo more of a makeover this summer.
Maybe not. And what else?
Well, but even if it does, though, the guys you're trading have value.
And they're in the Eastern Conference.
That's a big one.
And Dan Gilbert will win any bidding war. If Dan Gilbert had tried to hire Dan Hurley, he would have made sure he got it done.
That's a money thing.
You know what I heard?
We're talking about basketball.
You know what I heard the Cavaliers are doing? And this really does tilt it. I heard that they're offering the money, and they're going to say, you get a Brian Windhorst Akron Rubber Ducks bobblehead if you come to Cleveland. You can't get that in L.A.
Can't get it there.
You can't get it. They're also building state-of-the-art practice facility. It's going to be one of the best in the world. All right. That's basketball. They're in the Eastern Conference. They got good. It's a top-heavy roster, but it's a good roster. And they've got the Akron bobblehead. Third, okay, money. We just talked about it. I don't think Dan Gilbert's getting outbid. Drawing players, certainly the Lakers. Quality of life, I'm from Cleveland. I ain't throwing stones, but
if part of quality of life is the amount of stress in the job, there's way less stress in the Cavs job.
Although JB Bickerstaff might disagree right now, but yes. It's not the same kind of spotlight, and it's not even the same.
JB have drinks with Darvin and see.
Right. It's not in the same remote category in terms of spotlight.
If they wanted
intensity.
James Borrego, then they would have called and offered him the job Monday night, and he wouldn't have gone to the Cavs offices for the interview on Tuesday. That did not happen. So, but I'm just saying, there's 3 candidates we know of. 2 of them are not available to be interviewed right now. which if that's who you want, you just wait. But
Maybe they'll go back to Frank Vogel.
What's Phil Jackson up to these days?
We can go back and be like hockey. Hockey
Sure, he's in
guys just go around to different jobs like every 6 minutes. And coaches will go to the same place 3 times. Bring Frank Vogel back. He's chilling.
This is what happened in 2019. They didn't get their number 1 choice, Ty Lue. Just as a reminder.
And by the way, why didn't they get Ty Lue?
They offered him a ridiculously.
Yeah.
Ty Lue said it. He in an
They
interview
didn't pay enough money. I was doing the money sign for YouTube people.
Was like Youngwasuk did the interview with him like a couple years later, and he was like, "Yeah, they pretty much this isn't an exact quote, but he said they pretty much disrespected me." He's like, "They thought I just wanted a job to have a job."
Right. And
So he took no
they
job.
didn't get another chance at him this time because Ballmer made sure of that.
And by the way,
they didn't get a chance at Jason Kidd.
By the way, he got offered the Lakers head coaching job and said, "I'd rather be an assistant with the Clippers," and he got the head coaching job later.
And by the way, one other thing. If you're going to interview for this Laker job and you see they just offered Dan Hurley 6 years, $70 million, because we know Woj is reporting is lock solid, so obviously they offered that. I'm saying, hey, if you want me to coach this team, I would like, at minimum,
6 years and $70 million.
I ain't taking $1 less than that.
No? Hey, this seems like a number you're comfortable with.
Yeah. You want to pay that? Like, great, let's go. And if you don't, I'd say, hey, I got other things to do.
Also in 2019, they offered Monty Williams the job, and Robert Sarver offered him a job, and Jeannie Buss offered him a job.
Hey, what's my guy the old St. Vincent St. Mary coach who just stepped down from Duquesne?
Keith Dambrot.
Dambrot. He would come for probably slightly less than 6 and 7. They might be able to get it.
Proven to win a champion. Proven he can win with LeBron.
You're making a joke. In all seriousness, Keith Dambrot would be an excellent hire. I mean, if you're going to go with a college coach, yeah. He's passing me a note. Totally broke my stride. Sorry, Jackson.
I was
can't
trying
impact
to
his
put you in
brain,
position
Jackson.
to
It doesn't work very
have
hard.
outstanding sourcing with the Lakers' next head coach.
Well, listen, Keith would do it for slightly less than that. But anyway.
He's happily retired.
Yeah.
Could bring Drew Joyce immediately out of Duquesne. Hasn't even coached a game yet. Bring him to the Lakers.
That was the thing about Keith Dambrot is that he wasn't afraid to get into LeBron. He got into LeBron.
Well, it's a little bit different than when he's 16.
I understand.
Dan Hurley wouldn't have been afraid to either, but that is an alternate history we will not visit. And listen, I mean, we'll see what happens with the Lakers. It's going to be fascinating, but we're a couple weeks out from the draft, and we've talked a lot about the Cavs. The Cavs have a lot of stuff to decide this summer. I think Borrego's a very strong candidate in Cleveland. I think it makes a lot of sense there. We'll see if it ends up getting done. But a lot of stuff the Lakers have to figure out in a very short amount of time. And, we're, as of today, the draft is 2 weeks from
tomorrow
when this pod posts.
That's
2
right.
weeks from today. So there's
But
a lot
in 2019,
going on.
they ended up with Vogel.
They might end up with Vogel again.
They made a great trade for Anthony Davis. I didn't think it was a great trade, and they made it, but winning a championship means never saying you're sorry. Right. And there's no reason why they can't recover. They are not. The Lakers are rarely desperate, and they're not desperate now. They'll be fine.
Well, again, but I think it's also within the context of what are they recovering to? Like the idea that they're going to be back in the playoffs again? Sure.
Well, I said in the story that I wrote, it's reasonable to say that a goal for next year would be to avoid the play-in. That's a reasonable thing to say.
Yeah. That's probably
that would be a good season.
That's probably about the ceiling.
Yeah.
Get a top 6 seed in the West. But again, for most people, that's not going. I should clarify. For most people in the Laker universe, that is not an acceptable outcome, and that is where the rub is for whoever gets this job. Is the expectations are up here, and the realistic outcomes are like somewhere down here. Like you're going to be an okay team.
I have this. I know we know this stat, but I'm just going to repeat it, and it was in my story today. The Lakers have finished above 7th one time in the last 12 years.
Yep.
It's a heck of a one time, but yeah.
Hey, never say you're sorry. All right, no one's going to say they're sorry for this podcast because Jackson got it on card. Thank you for listening to Hoop Collective. Thank you to Jackson. Thank you to Adi, our producers. Thank you to Bontemps and MacMahon. And we will talk to you ahead. Actually, I guess we'll talk to you after Game 3, but this group will talk to you ahead of Game 4.
Lo siento y adios amigos.
Thank you for watching the Hoop Collective, presented by Coinbase. We'll talk to you soon.